Well, hello, everybody, and happy Monday. I do hope that you've been enjoying it so far. You've tuned into Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes. Today in my Zoom booth, I'm delighted to have John Boyce from Wisteria Community Association. Hey, John, how's it going?
Really well today.
I'm glad. That's good. You're doing what I want to call true heart work for those that are unhoused or going through some difficult times in Nanaimo. How would you like to share with our viewers a little bit about who and what is Wisteria Community Association? What do you guys do in the hood?
Well, started a number of years ago um, because there was a need that was not being met
Yeah.
completely. There were a few other groups that were helping out, but there's just so many people out there facing so many difficulties. Somebody always slipped through the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I seem to recall two of the founders, I think, of the organization were doing it out of the back of a rented house. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Um,
So are they still part of everything?
Absolutely. Actually, that's the president and her husband.
Okay, so Tanya and Doug Hiltz are the people that have been part of Wisteria since the get-go. How long has it been running now, John?
I'm not sure exactly because it started before I joined.
Well, it's been around for a while. It's been at least
I've
10 years,
been
I think.
I've been with the group for a couple of years since before COVID.
Yeah. And COVID sort of changed the face of what was happening in community, didn't it?
It sure did. A lot of places were unable to welcome people into their locations. They had to scale back. But because we were doing things mobile from a van, we were able to go to them following all the COVID procedures, gloves, masks,
Yeah, the protocols were so important at that time. Why do you do this work, John?
because they helped me. And I want to give something back. I was working two jobs, 12 hours a day sometimes, and I still wasn't making enough to cover the mortgage and eat. I always made sure that my son had food, but sometimes I came up a little short for myself. So Doug and Tanya helped me out. They would feed me at night, and when they suddenly found themselves evicted,
Yeah.
I couldn't let them sleep on the street, so I invited them to stay with me.
So are you guys still together in the same house now, or have they
We
has
are.
things how things have changed? Perfect. And so tell me, a lot of people have a real misunderstanding of what the unhoused population looks like in our community. You're pointing out that you were an employed person, you were working two jobs with your mortgage, and it just wasn't enough to cut, or, to make everything work properly. So, that must have been really hard on you.
Look on my face would say, yeah, it was stressful.
Yeah, I can only imagine, right? And so Doug and Tanya and you have become fast friends, and now that's being done throughout the community, and you're feeding a tremendous amount of people every single night.
Yeah, we started at between 80 to 120 every night, and now we're up to about 250.
It's hard to imagine that there are 250 people struggling in our community. Do you find that that number is changing? Is it increasing rapidly, especially as the holiday season is coming closer to us?
In my perspective, it wasn't rapidly, but I guess it really is. I mean, that 3 years, and
Mhm.
it's almost doubled, actually, approximately doubled.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of things does Wisteria Community Association do for the community in the way of helping the unhoused or the financially uh, more challenged? Let's word it that way.
Well, it's not uncommon for mothers and their kids to suddenly be displaced at the end of a relationship. So sometimes these single moms, occasionally single dads, but most of the time it's single moms,
Yeah.
manage to get some shelter, but they're basically left with empty hands. So people give us donations of clothing, furniture, basic necessities for the house, and we make sure that those go to the people that need them. So we have equipped quite a few households with the furniture that they need to get by.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that an organization that's predominantly helping to feed the hungry is able to provide, clothing as well as furniture. How do people access your services?
There are several ways. Some people donate through the website of Canada Helps.
Hmm.
That's canadahelps.org. A lot of people donate directly to us. They see the phone number on the van as we drive around. They see us on Facebook. That's where we've got a really large presence.
Hmm.
Of course, we've got our website, Wisteria Community Association.com. And it's got a
Which,
lot
yeah,
of our story on there as well.
which is really great because Wisteria Community Association.com is easy to find on all the social media platforms. But and of course, I'm going to get people to get a piece of pen and a paper a little later on in the program so that they can jot it down and certainly help wherever they possibly can. I'm curious about the changes that have happened in the last little while within community. The weather is getting colder. Recently we had a little bit of snowfall, although we haven't had a major a dump yet. How do people cope when that's happening?
That's not easy. There have been a couple of groups starting up warming centers, but of course, there's never enough and they're never big enough.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that we try to do to help is provide the people that need them with tents and sleeping bags. It's not a house, but we're kind of
And
limited in what we do.
yeah, but a tent and a sleeping bag at least gets, someone under some form of shelter. Yeah.
Yes. And of course,
Yeah.
warm clothes, socks are always welcome.
Yeah. So I would imagine that at this time of year that to help out with Wisteria, that would be something that you guys could really use from the community would be warm clothing and warm hats, mittens, gloves, shoes, boots, things like that.
Yeah, jackets especially.
Jackets especially. When I mean, obviously we don't want to be voyeuristic in your life, so don't misunderstand me. But when you started working in this role with Wisteria Community Association, what were some of the things that you were alarmed by or shocked by in your daily activities?
Many people were affected. Oh, and one of the things that difficult to speak about was um, when I joined the group. One of the first things that we did was take food, hot coffee, chocolate, um, and clothing, all the blankets, everything that was portable to the location where they were gathering a lot, which is on Franklin Street.
Yeah.
And the thing that shocked me the most was we would show up midday or in the afternoon and find out that a lot of them had had their their homes taken from them, their
Yeah.
tents picked up and thrown into the back of a truck and taken to the dump,
Yeah.
along with everything else they had.
Yeah. I was recently at a conference in the East Coast, in Halifax, and they talked about how all over Canada, they call it the sweep. They come along into tent cities and literally give people a couple of moments to get up and get out of there, pack up their stuff and go, or they'll be threatened by police and others. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I know that the police are trying to do their job to a certain extent, but it's almost making the marginalization of these people even more so when they're having to consistently get up and move and find new locations and have their stuff thrown away each and every time. Are we seeing a lot of sweeping being done in Nanaimo?
Not as much as there was. Um,
What's changed?
they used to gather all in one place,
Yeah.
mostly one place, uh, because there was safety in numbers. They would all look out for each other, watch each other's backs, share resources, help each other out. But after that started happening, they got scattered to the wind. So now they're small groups of maybe half a dozen in any one place. It's more difficult for them to find support when they're all over the place.
So that must make it difficult with your mobile. I mean, and what maybe tell us a little bit about the truck and what, or the mobile van or whatever it is that you're using to get the food out to people. Where is all of this stuff coming from? How are you being supported at this point?
Our first van, approximately half of it was paid for by bottle donations. So a couple of our volunteers would take their vehicles, sometimes with a trailer, out to Nanoose Bay, which is an incredibly generous community, um, and many, many places around, like Cedar, basically any place in the regional district of Nanaimo.
Sure.
They gave us lots of bottles, monetary donations. We've got a couple of bigger uh, groups and corporate sponsors that gave us money specifically for getting the first van that we had. The first van lasted quite a few years until it was a used van with many, many kilometers on it. Eventually, the engine gave up in that one. So we had
Hmm.
another private sponsor actually buy us a replacement van. Absolutely amazing. Um,
Yes.
it's been, well, I was going to say decorated, branded with Wisteria Community Association and Stone Soup logos, and of course our contact number. And we've got many decals from a lot of our sponsors that will be going on it very shortly. We've only just acquired it within the past few weeks.
Oh, so it's a new van that you've received. How fantastic.
Well, I wish it was new.
No, but
It's
new is in new to you. That's
new to
still, it's
us.
still, yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
for
still
sure.
22 years old, but it's in better condition than the previous one.
Absolutely. I mean, it means that you can keep going and you can keep supporting the community in such a generous way.
The
So
other nice thing about it, sorry, is it's much larger than the previous one. So we're
yes.
able to get even more stuff out to them in a single trip.
So just to, so that I understand more correctly, does the van itself have a small kitchen on the inside of it? How, or where's the food all made? How are people getting this food?
So another part of uh, the thing that many, many sponsors helped us with, uh, Saywell Construction, BAM Construction. There's just so many that I can't even begin to list them here without taking an hour. Um, a few doors up from the intersection of Wallace and Fitzwilliam, we were able to acquire a retail space, had it completely gutted, renovated, plumbed, wired, and turned that into an actual commercial kitchen, adhering to COVID standards, so that nobody's bunched up inside. There's lots of room to maneuver. So that is where all the food is prepared every day. And then about 4 p.m., Doug and whoever is driving that day head to the kitchen, load it up with all the bagged lunches or hot food, and then go out to the various locations where the homeless and other needy know that we're going to be.
Yeah, and I think that what's clear and important about what Wisteria Community Association does is it isn't just for the unhoused population. It's really anybody that, as far as I recall from the early days, I don't know if it's changed. Maybe you can help me with that. But I thought it was like as low barrier as possible. Anybody who was hungry would receive food or hamper, or not hamper, but like a bag lunch or something like that. Is it still pretty much the same way now?
Yes, in fact, we do deliver to some hotel rooms and shelters where people have some place to call home, but they still can't make ends meet.
But the largest proportion are those that are unhoused, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm dating myself a little bit, but back in the day when Wisteria first, when Tanya and Doug first started off, they usually did a Christmas on the streets kind of campaign, which brought people together and fed a Christmas dinner. Is that still something that's being done, or have you shifted the focus to do other things for the community? What does it look like?
It's absolutely still being done. In fact, this year will be our 8th year for Christmas on the Street.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited. I mean, I think that I attended a few of them back in the early years. I haven't been able to recently, as usually I'm out of town when they're happening. But I'm always gobsmacked at how well everyone comes together, how everyone enjoys a meal together. Sometimes there's music. I think John Gogo played one year, or one of the Gogos
All
was
go.
there. Paul Gogo was there. There's been a few different people that have come and made this really a wonderful, wonderful event for people to enjoy a meal and feel the Christmas spirit. So I'm so glad that that's still happening. Where does it take place now?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. This year is going to be a little bit different. Instead of
Okay,
being one central location, because it's so difficult for a lot of people to get around, we're going to them. So it'll be the
great.
same locations that we go to every night. This time, just with bigger meals and more supplies.
So bigger meals and more supplies. What do you mean by supplies? What kind of things do you give out to people?
As many blankets and socks
Oh,
and hats and tubes,
yeah, yeah.
anything to keep people warm.
So how can the community help out? How can we get stuff to you so that you can distribute it to the people that need it the most?
Well, one way is by contacting us on Facebook.
Yeah.
Um, there are links as well through the Wisteria Community Association.com website.
Mhm.
And people can give Tanya a call at our phone number. And if people want to write it down, it's 250-591-6443.
Okay. What I intend to do with that is put that on our, we'll get people to go get a piece of paper. Actually, now's a good time to do that. If you're listening now, I know that you want to help out Wisteria Community Association because they do amazing work for so many people within our community. And so it's such a great gift for us to be able to have them on App 3. And we encourage you to consider them as if you do a lovely gift at Christmas is wonderful, but really this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year that someone is in need of some kind of support. And Wisteria Community Association has been stepping up for 8 years minimum because that's how long the Christmas program has been going on, and probably a few years before that. So it's a really, really great place to support people who are getting direct action right away. So go get that piece of paper and a pen. While we're doing that, I'll do a little station identification. If you have just tuned in, you've tuned into CHOY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes in the Zoom booth. With me today, I have John Boyes. He is from Wisteria Community Association, and we are talking about how we can help people right here in our community during the holiday season. So, John, you said that you'd been part of the team for a couple of years now from your own experience. What role do you play?
They decided to make me the vice president.
Oh, they gave you a title.
Yes.
And with that comes all kinds of responsibility, doesn't it? What would you say your day usually looks like? What does it look like for helping out the people in community?
Hmm. Now, when they made me vice president, we were in the middle of COVID, so I was not working.
Yeah.
I'm actually employed as a bus driver. And when COVID came to an end, I went back to driving bus as well. So my duties are split between work and
Driving the bus. Yeah.
working with Wisteria. So
So
pretty busy day sometimes.
I would imagine so because you do several runs a day, right? You have a lunch run, like when you're thinking about delivering the food. I know that you don't do all of the deliveries, but delivering food is a big part of the day.
Actually, during the day, most of the time, we're delivering things like furniture and other supplies to
Hmm.
somebody that have a roof over their house, so over their head,
Hmm.
um, and picking up recovered food from restaurants through the food recovery program, donations, especially bottles and cans, and then the food goes out at about 5 o'clock. So we don't have a lunch run in the morning. Lots of people have been going to Salvation Army,
Hmm.
and then we cover the evening.
Hmm.
Um, did you need to know, or would you like to know where um, we can
I,
be met? on the street.
I think that's a really great idea. I think, getting people the understanding of how they can find you and as well how they can support you by bringing donations to you. But before you share that, because I'm hoping that people are still grabbing their paper and their pen. But what I'm curious about from the perspective of the kitchen, I've had the great pleasure of being at the Wisteria Community Association kitchen, and it is to die for. It's a wonderful facility. It's well put together. You've got some amazing people that are creating meals for people. Where does all the food come from? I heard you talk about grocery recovery, but where or restaurant recovery? Is that the predominantly where you get the food from, or are you closely linked with Loaves and Fishes, or do you have partnerships or community outreach that helps in between?
In fact, we do go to the food bank pretty much every day,
Yeah.
and they're a huge supplier of ours. We've also got some corporate groups that or companies that send us lots of food as well.
Hmm. So nothing goes to waste, though. I've been in that kitchen. I've watched what's the cook's name there? She's fantastic.
Galen,
Sorry?
Galen.
Gayleen. So Gayleen, I had the good pleasure of meeting her fairly recently, and oh my gosh, that what that woman can do to make a soup is unbelievable. Like she pulls every creation together out of whatever she gets given, and it's so amazing to me.
Yeah, she and her team. Um, about the only break they ever take is for illness.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think she ever gets sick. I think the woman she's like constantly just 100% of the time fully engaged.
I've actually been worried about her overdriving herself, but group wouldn't be the same without her.
Well, it's got to be a real passion for you to stay and do this work too. Like I said in the top of the hour, it's heart work. What keeps you there? What is it about Wisteria Community Association that gives you the breath to keep going and going?
Asking me to define something that I don't know I can actually define. It's just I was helped out giving back, and I've got a lot more to give, so I stopped.
Yeah, I love that. It's very true. It's when you are start giving, it's like it's hard to stop giving when it feels so good to do so. And especially right now with the amount of people that we're finding that are on the street or having some challenges. Um, a few moments ago, we sort of talked about the sweeps and how, some of the unhoused were being treated. Do you know as to whether or not there are any plans to create warming shelters, more warming shelters, or have you heard of any possibilities where where community is coming together to sort of make some changes?
That is information that um, there's always plans to create more warming shelters, but at what stage of the creation? There's just so many different sources of information. I don't have them all.
Yeah, no, I
Tanya,
understand.
Tanya herself, however, is a wealth of information.
Tanya's a go-getter. Like she's a go-getter. She does there's no holds bar. She's gotcha. Like she wants to make some very good plans to make some changes for sure.
And it's no exaggeration to say that she is the heart and soul of Wisteria. It would not exist without her.
Yeah,
And Doug is her right hand guy. I mean, the fact that he's also her husband, he's in a very unique position to really give a lot of himself as well.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing her sit down to rest. She's tireless when she gets going. And so a few minutes ago, well, you talked about where that you're now going to these different places. So how about you share with our audience now? I'm sure that they've got their pen and paper handy. So why don't you let people know where can they find the supports for Wisteria Community Association?
So every night, our van heads out, and especially this year, we've got a set schedule. Usually, it's a little bit more flexible, but this year on Robson, we'll be there from 5:30 to 6:15 p.m. Of course,
Hmm.
and then we move over to the parking lot at Cavan and Victoria Road. Be there from 6:20 until 7 p.m. Then we move down to the library from 7:05 until 7:20, and then out to Bowen Park Field. That's the one that's very close to the Quarterway Pub, between 7:30 and 8 p.m.
Is there one location that seems to have more people than another location?
It shifts around a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, when I was doing the runs with them frequently, um, I noticed them most often at the stop behind the church, which is right across the road from Stone Soup Kitchen.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I'll drop by after work when the van is already out doing its rounds, and I see quite a large group at Bowen Park Field, sometimes at the library. Really varies from day to day.
Yeah. And during the winter, like as it is now, is there a difference in the food that's provided? Are there more hot foods available for people when it's cold?
Well, this is going to be the first winter that we've actually had the kitchen fully up and running. So one of the things that we had, we felt that it was kind of a shortcoming that all we could do was provide bagged lunches.
Yeah.
But due to lots of corporate donations of equipment, we've actually got heating bags that they get charged up at the kitchen. The food's all prepared hot. It goes into the hot bags and it stays hot for hours. So when um, when we open the doors of the van, even at 8 p.m. at our last stop, the food's still hot. And I'm actually really, really excited that we're able to do that now, all thanks to uh, so many of our sponsors in helping us get the kitchen ready. It's taken us 2.5 years to build that kitchen. Finally get to
Yes.
use.
Yes, and it is fully endorsed by Island Health and through all those, very important the paper trail that goes to keep kitchens like this open. It's really important that is constantly checked on and surveyed, and it's good to know that finally you've got the space, you've got the license on the door. It is not any longer being something that someone's crock pot at the back door of their
Right.
house, right? Like, which is the way it was for many years. And truth be told, that was some of the most wonderful gifting ever, is that you could see, Doug and Tanya in the back of their house coming out and bringing out their crock pots and making sure that people were getting stone soup. I'm sure you're familiar with the story Stone Soup and how it got its name. Would you like to share that with our community?
Well, just before I do that, um, even when they were serving people out of their backyard, all the food was still prepared at commercial kitchens.
Oh, yes, it was. That's true. Hmm.
Like I think St. Vincent's Church, and
Yeah,
remember the other one. I'm so embarrassed.
that's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah, it all came from VIA approved commercial kitchens.
It did. Yeah, very true. Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, for the people not familiar with that story, um, a town was well, a lot of people in town just had nothing to eat, or only a couple of things. So somebody suggested that the, the town get together, throw a gigantic uh, pot together with, of course, water. Um, and I think it was a little boy started by giving what he had to offer, which was a stone. He threw a stone in. Somebody else threw some carrots in. Somebody else threw other veggies, fruits. Basically, the whole town came together, threw little bits and pieces in, and next thing you know, they had a gigantic pot that fed the whole town.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite stories ever. In fact, I've used that story long before I knew that Wisteria Community Association was going to be naming their service provision Stone Soup. It was a family story in my world. I was one of the recipients of this kind of generosity by community. I grew up very poor. And the kindness of strangers is what helped our family to be able to do the things that we were able to do within the community. And still, when I asked you the question earlier about why you stay, that's the reason why I do what I do as well. There's a point of which you remember what it's like to go hungry. You remember what it's like to be afraid to be outside, not to know what's going to happen next, where your next meal is coming from, and through the generosity of the Salvation Army and others. When I was growing up, we were always housed, but we could never make ends meet, right? Social services back in the day were much more generous than they certainly are now. I think that, in fact, that people that receive social assistance now are actually receiving the same amount that I received back in 1982. I don't think that anything has changed at all from that perspective. But I think it's interesting to me how when a community is really in need of providing something for the benefit of all people, people just show up. And there's never, I'm always surprised by how people who come from, who don't always have very much, especially at this time of year, are continue to be incredibly generous. Um, and so for me, when I know what is at stake in our community, my biggest fear is about people being in the cold. And so I guess I'm hoping that our communities can come together and find solutions that will help people be warm and dry. It's great to have a bowl of soup. It's great to have the support of Wisteria Community Association and other organizations, Rise Bridge, to name one, Salvation Army, another. Like, there are a lot of incredible organizations that are giving of their time and their person power to make sure that people that are unhoused are getting some supports. But it's just not an easy life for these people. And I wish that there was a way that we could all be out of jobs. Does that make sense? That this didn't exist.
It does make sense.
Yeah, it's a tough thing for people. So at Christmas time, especially, what are I know we've already said it a little bit ago, but some of the things that we don't think about at Christmas time are often things that some of the other programs are also talking about. Things like shampoo and toothpaste and things like that. Do you collect sundries as well?
I sure do. In fact, I just brought a bag of individual soaps home tonight. But yeah, if people have anything that they don't need, or anything that they might throw into a food bank hamper, for example, canned goods over to the food bank is perfect, or to us, it's your choice. But uh, yes, shampoo, conditioner, or two-in-one, um, toothbrushes, toothpaste, soaps, toques, hats, gloves, mittens, blankets, sleeping bags, anything that we use on a daily basis and just don't think about till you don't have them.
Yeah, or you need to buy them. I think razors are another one, like anything that people don't realize how expensive it is to buy a razor at this point. Is there a drop off point for people to drop off this great stuff, or is it by just calling Tanya and saying, "Hey, I have some goodies"?
If somebody calls Tanya, then they can definitely get our location. It's better to do it when we know you're coming,
Yeah.
because then we can be ready. Because, I mean, to be honest, we go to bed at like 10 p.m. So we've had some people try to drop stuff off at 2 in the morning. It's like,
Yeah, well, that's
everybody's
really
asleep.
hard.
Yeah, we're all
Of
asleep.
course. Of course, you need to get your energy for the morning, for heaven's sakes. That's kind of crazy. Yeah.
So midday to the evening would be perfect. Um, yeah, I recommend contacting Tanya at the phone number or via our Facebook link, and arrange drop off point or drop off time at that point.
Do you have future plans for Wisteria Community Association? What's happening, walking ahead in the coming 2024? Any thoughts?
I was going to say Tanya treats me like a mushroom, keeps me in the dark, but that's not at all true. I used to know absolutely everything, but that's when I wasn't working. But sometimes I'm gone for a couple of days at a time, working 12-hour days.
Yeah.
And there's always some information I miss. So she really is the best source of information as
Yeah.
far as that goes.
Well, I think that, definitely to call Tanya. So what's Tanya's phone number again?
It is 250-591-6443.
Great. So 250-591-6443. And on Facebook, how do you find her?
Just look for Wisteria Community, and it might fill in with Community Association at that point. And of course, there's the main website that I mentioned earlier.
So is there a fundraising event coming up in the near future or anything like that? Or is it just an ongoing?
Oh, it's always ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hunger doesn't go to sleep at Christmas time. It's 365 days a year for people. Are you finding that the bag lunches, like the amount of food and everything that you've been receiving so far to create this, has it been enough or do you sometimes fall short?
Fortunately, we have not fallen short yet.
Thank you. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
But then again, that's a lot of Tanya behind that as well, because she's actively calling restaurants and looking for more sources of anything that we need.
hmm So what do restaurants pass forward? Just like if they have stock that they haven't cooked yet or things that haven't, been used that they have a surplus of? Is that how it usually works?
For the most part, sometimes restaurants just don't work out and they have to close their doors. So they give everything that they haven't used yet to us.
Yeah, when you say close the doors, it's true. There's a lot of restaurants that have been closing, and I thankfully there's no COVID to the same extent that there was a few years ago. Um, Again, from your perspective, noting that you're working another job, you're not always there. Have you seen the community remain healthy as far as the unhoused population, or are you seeing any rise of illness or anything that we can help with that we know about? Or is everybody just status quo?
It hurts me to say that we have lost quite a few people over the last 2 or 3 years, including a very dear friend of mine.
Mhm.
I mean, we all know that a portion of the homeless society has problems with addiction. And sometimes what they are able to get is not as clean as it should be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we've lost quite a few people to overdose.
the poison drug supply is very, very frightening. I agree with you. I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but I hear they're quite high, or certainly higher than they've been in a number of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not just my friend, but several people that I used to deal with on a daily basis during the height of COVID. Got to know some of them fairly well, and they're no longer with us. Heartbreaking.
Absolutely. I would imagine there's a lot of grieving that's happening in the community. Yeah.
Yes.
People take care of each other when they're on the street, right? What is that song? People, people on the street are happy to give. I'm thinking Tina Turner, right? Big wheels keep on moving. How I don't remember the words of the song, so it's probably not going to help it. Our radio listeners most definitely know the tune, and they can find it on iHeartRadio or Spotify or other places. But the reality is that people on the street are very happy to give. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the people that are in lived experience from the streets, and I think that it's interesting that we are seeing. I think we're starting to see a little bit of a change in the dynamics for people. I think that people are now looking towards people who have that lived experience to help share, to help sort of let our city know what it is that is actually needed for them in a way that we probably have never done. Are you seeing that as well?
Yes. One of the songs that, well, speaking of music, that comes to mind is "Get By with Little Help from My Friends,"
Yeah,
and the amount of help that they've all given each other. A number of them have actually managed to get clean,
yeah.
and they've been helping others to get clean, and that's really encouraging to see.
Yeah, I'm loving that because I do know that there's just not enough beds for people that are ready to come off of addiction. When they're ready and they need that they need it now. That waiting time is that it's not acceptable that there's a wait time for anybody to be going into detox or wherever they need to go. And surprisingly, there is a misnomer that there's a lot of people on the streets that do drugs. In actual fact, that isn't true. What is true is that there is a proportion, yes, probably a larger proportion than all of us wish it were for everyone's health and well-being. But definitely the larger proportion that we're seeing of people that are unhoused are older adults.
Absolutely. Ones that have just slipped through the cracks.
Yeah. And
Uh,
ones that have never needed to have any support before, that they've been through a memorandum of things, and then suddenly, they're being rent evicted or they're being priced out of affordable housing, and as a direct consequence are seeing themselves living unhoused for the first time ever in their lives, and they've been through countless things. It's really disappointing to see that, but that's the bigger statistic than people that are on using alcohol or drugs. It's interesting to me that our latest pit counts have really been an eye opener as to what's happening within at least our general community. And is there anything that we can do, from your experience, to help people to reduce the stigma about being unhoused? Is there something that you would recommend for people to do so that there is a better communication and a better appreciation for people's life experience?
One way of a perfect example is one of our drivers actually was recently homeless and he had an addiction problem, but he got himself clean. And then his wife took him back. So he's helping us now. And part of his story is on our website, Wisteria Community Association. The United Way actually prepared a video, and Check Six did an interview with him as well, as he
Yeah,
was driving the interview around doing errands for the day.
yeah,
Um, as for what we can all do is have a heart. Recognize that there are many circumstances beyond our control. I was maybe 3 to 6 weeks away from being homeless myself a couple of years ago.
yeah.
And that was a real eye opener. A lot of people came together and helped me, did what I could to help them back. And there's still more that I can do, which is why I'm still with the group.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to me too that people that are, they forget that we're all one paycheck away from having a challenge in our lives. Not everybody has got a padded or comfortable means for which to do it. And now with the cost of groceries being so high and the amount of money that people are making, you know, just to get by, they don't match for a lot of people anymore. And so, I'm feeling that the community itself is in need of, and not just in Nanaimo, I think Canada wide, people are noticing when they go to the grocery store more than they've ever noticed before. Yeah.
Um, Following up on the previous thought of what we can do, I'm going to quote Robin Williams. Everyone is fighting a battle that you cannot see.
Yeah.
Be kind, always.
Yeah, if you can't be anything else, be kind. Always be kind. Um, I know for my experiences, it was the kindness of strangers that helped me. And I wouldn't be the woman that I am today without the kindness of those strangers. I would not, my family would not be, I would not be. I have talked about it a lot on my program. It's one of the reasons I do the program now. My prayer is to give the voice to the unheard, always to be kind, not to poke into other people's lives, but always to understand that everyone has a story. And if we just take the time to listen to that story, uh, we can be moved and move mountains to help somebody else. It doesn't take a lot of time or effort to do that. So I find that Community Association is one of my favorite organizations because it's so grassroots. It's so, come on now, let's get her done. Come on, stuff's got to be done. There's a way to get her done. We'll get her done. And it's a constant reminder of the resilience of people.
Especially with Tanya guiding us.
Yeah.
I was going to make a joke and say cracking the whip, but no, she's
Probably
not
not the best joke. Yeah.
she's not a slave driver. She's a leader.
She's a leader. Yeah.
She leads us. She guides us.
Yeah.
She's the one that finds out what needs to be done, how to do it, and then sees who in the group has the strengths to see to that particular task, and then suggests that that task be perfect for them, and then we run with it.
So tell me a little bit more about your board because I know you had some really amazing people on the board. I don't know who's there now, so I'm just curious. Have you got a fairly new board, or is your board some of the same people that have been around for nearly a decade?
Some of them are some of the old ones, and we do have some new ones as well. Um, when it comes to the board, I will admit that I was working on a multi-day trip during the last general meeting, so I don't have a list of the new directors.
That's okay. That's all right. It makes no difference. We just know that there's a board and that the board is a working board and they get stuff done right along with Tanya. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, um, because it is a registered charity,
Yes.
there's second financial oversight. So Tanya decides what needs to be done to the money, and then secretary and myself, and of course we've got certified general accountant, um, oversee to make sure that there's no funny business going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're a nonprofit association, so it's important that that everything that goes into it comes back out of it in the way of community funding, and that's what you've done. I can't imagine the amount of people that you're feeding every single day. And when I was asking about your guys' goals moving forward, I know that having a new van, or not the newest of vans, but having another vehicle to be able to continue the work is an important thing moving forward. If there are philanthropists that are listening, what would be the ask? What would you love to receive from someone if you could, if you could have the golden wish? What might that look like for you?
I wish I'd had a chance to consult with Tanya before the Zoom meeting. Uh,
Because there's a lot of great stuff. I
yes,
know.
my life
Yeah.
is going in about 3 different directions right now.
Yeah.
And as far as Wisteria, Tanya is really the person to talk to.
Yeah. That's okay.
It used to be that we
We've had
needed,
Tanya on the show. Actually, Tanya was supposed to do this show, but she delegated you.
so I
She
mean,
only told you is what happened, I think. And Tanya, by the way, I know Tanya and Doug very well. Or well, not very, very well, but we've worked together over the years. So it's all good. But Tanya is a brilliant and wise human. She put someone in who can help have a good conversation with us. And that's part of your role as the vice president of the organization, right? That is your position, correct?
that is correct. Yeah.
So she just threw you under the bus for good measure. It's all
I,
good.
I was voluntold.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And
as far
that's
as
okay.
what I do, when anything has to be done with the bank, that's either me or
Yeah,
our secretary. But
yeah.
she's out of town a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, considering we live in the same house, so
I
Tanya
know, but
just yells up the stairs, "Hey, can you do this?" Boom. Down they go.
stuff gets done. Yeah, no. I'm not worried about any of that good stuff. The stuff gets done. It always does. That's fantastic. And so when it comes to finding those locations again, I think it's a really good time. We're nearing the end of the hour. We're not fully there yet. We have a few more minutes, but I do think what would be great is if you could retell how people can find you, the phone number, the information, all of that, but what are the locations one more time so people know? And also remind us of, I've given you 3 questions here all at once. How can we help? How can community help? Go for it.
Donations of, as you had mentioned earlier, sundries, um,
Yeah.
moist wipes, uh,
Yes.
toothbrushes, uh, toothpaste, shampoo, um, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies that somebody would use for themselves, not a kitchen.
Yeah. Personal
Yeah,
wipes and things. Yeah.
thank you. I've had a long day and my brain isn't running on all
Oh, you're
cylinders.
doing great. You are doing amazing. Not a worry there.
So yeah, I realized that one thing I'd forgotten to mention is which day Christmas on the Street is going to be.
Yes, I was curious about that too. I'm glad you brought it up. Which day will
So
be Christmas on the street?
December 26th,
Oh, Boxing Day.
Boxing Day. So we will be mobile this year. Anyone wanting to donate with food or gifts can do so at the locations, and that's where we'll also be handing out the food. That's at Robson, Savannah, Victoria, the library, and Bowen Park Field. Times again at Robson from 5:30 to 6:15. Savannah and Victoria parking lot from 6:20 until 7 o'clock. The library from 7:05 until 7:20. And at Bowen Park Field, 7:30 until 8 p.m.
So there are 4 locations and then those different times for each of those locations. And that will be on the 26th will be the festive meal. Do you need donations of turkeys or any of that stuff, or has that already been
We
been
wouldn't say no.
acquired? Wouldn't say no.
I, if we have extra,
All the better.
then yeah, then it goes out on the following days.
Yeah, it becomes turkey soup or whatever as well. So this is a good
Exactly.
thing. Yeah. So food is always good. Sundries, soap, socks, things to keep people warm, all of those wonderful things. And being that you're mobile this year, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing, because you get to hit those particular areas. I think it's important that people recognize that, yes, it's great to be able to give to people, but be considerate on what you're giving. And the reason I'm saying this is that we just talked about a turkey, for example. A lot of people in their infinite wisdom want to give directly to the unhoused. And so they will give them something that they can't cook. They don't have the facilities to cook or do things, right? So, to really be mindful about the kinds of things that you want to share with people is very important. And so, make things more personal. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I couldn't have put it better myself.
I'm imagining. I remember somebody telling me the story about somebody who was so excited that they were given a turkey for the holiday season, and they were like, "Here you go. Here's this great turkey," but it wasn't cooked. I was like, yeah, well, that was not a gift at the end of the day. So we do want to be mindful for anything that goes to people like this. The reliance on volunteers has always been a big issue for everyone in all of our community who does social services of any kind whatsoever. Are you still in actively seeking volunteers, or what does that look like?
Always.
Okay.
Um, we're actually hoping to expand. Ideally, we would love to get our hands on a second van, and that way we can get more food out to people quicker, expand the area that we're covering. Occasionally, we will send large batches of bagged lunches up to Parksville, for example,
Mm.
because there is a group of less fortunate up there as well that we're.
It's nice that you're expanding into Parksville and helping for sure. I noticed that they're not on your stops though. Is that just kind of a one-off thing that gets done once in a while, or is it something you're trying to build walking
It's
ahead?
it's something that we're working on building. Um, Somebody was actually coming down from Parksville, and then we were loading up their vehicle.
I see.
So
That's
a
really
little,
helpful.
a little
Yeah.
extension of us.
Well, there's people that need it everywhere. It's so important that we offer up some options and alternatives. Do you have a GoFundMe page or anything like that where people can send dollars to, or would that be something that we again would navigate through Tanya directly?
Tanya and the Facebook site would be the best places.
Okay.
Um, because I could list off where people can donate it. Canada helps, but it's a little complicated.
We'll leave that for Tanya. Let's shout out that phone number one more time.
All right. Tanya's reachable until 10 p.m. at 250-591-6443.
And your Facebook presence is Wisteria Community Association under Facebook. Make sure you join. Make sure you click it and see if you can find it in your heart to share a little extra that with Wisteria Community Association. It's directly impacting the people that are on our streets every single day, 365 days per year. We're now seeing the numbers to the upwards of 250 people a day. That's a lot of food and a lot of people. And so with gratitude to all of the people that support Wisteria Community Association, whether it be through the food bank, the restaurants, through the volunteers, through everybody, big thank you for doing what you do in our community. It is a needed service. And so I really, really encourage our listeners to please feel free to, give with your heart this Christmas to Wisteria Community Association. Is there, John, everybody who knows me knows that I try to live with a life lesson for everyone to be parting with, and this today is no different. So I just want to ask you if you could, and I know I never throw people under the bus either, so please don't misunderstand. But if you had the opportunity to share with the community a piece of wisdom, something that really is impactful for you, or something you would love to teach people to understand, what might that look like for you?
Our situations can change at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Couples can find themselves suddenly split apart. One of those members might suddenly be homeless, no place to go, with nothing except the clothes on their back. And they end up living under a bridge. They didn't do anything to deserve that. They don't have any substance abuse problems. It was just a matter of circumstance, and there they are, living on the street.
Yeah.
So always be compassionate. You never know how they got there.
Taking a deep breath with that, I believe the compassion and empathy and kindness are the three most important gifts that we can ever give to another human being. So thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure to have you on the program today. I'm really, really delighted that even though there were questions that were Tanya questions, the good news is we have Tanya's phone number, so we can knock on that website, or through the Facebook page or through her phone number, and get the further information if it's needed. 250-591-6443 is how you find Tanya. Wisteria Community Association on Facebook. And your website, is that the same? wisteriacommunityassociation.com or .ca?
.com.
.com. So wisteriacommunityassociation.com. These people are constantly trying to move the dial on this very, very important gift to community. I really think that it's something that we should all stand behind. So I appreciate you tuning in to Act 3 today, and look forward to seeing you on our next program. In the meantime, dig deep. Today's the time that you can have a call to action, make a phone call, and help them out. Have yourself a wonderful day, everybody.